Early in the morning on August 29, 2005, Category 3 Hurricane Katrina struck the Gulf Coast of the United States. When the storm made landfall, it brought sustained winds of 100 to 140 miles per hour and stretched some 400 miles across. The storm itself did a great deal of damage, but its aftermath was catastrophic. Katrina pummeled huge parts of Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama, but the most desperation was most concentrated in New Orleans. Hundreds and thousands of American citizens were left stranded in the debris and aftermath of the storm. It was a dire time for the United States. Now, everyone's opinion differentiates on how President Bush reacted to Hurricane Katrina. Some argue that it was FEMA's slow reaction to blame, while others claim it was a lack of resources. In all honesty, it was a mixture of both. In March of 2003, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, also known as FEMA, turned from an independent agency to a part of the Department of Homeland Security. President Bush appointed Michael D. Brown as FEMA's director in January of 2003. Hurricane Katrina was seen as the first major test of the nation's new disaster response plan under the Department of Homeland Security. Unfortunately, FEMA and the Department of Homeland Security underestimated the power of Hurricane Katrina. An estimated amount of 2,000 American citizens lost their lives, and hundreds of thousands more were left stranded without food or water. FEMA received intense criticism for its response to the evacuees of Hurricane Katrina. Although FEMA may have had pre-positioned response personnel in the Gulf Coast region, they did not thoroughly think through the chaos that Katrina was going to leave behind. The enormous number of evacuees simply overwhelmed rescue personnel. This situation was compounded by flood waters hampering with transportation of first aid and goods, and also with poor communication along the federal and local entities. Not only was there a lack of preparation of transportation and communication methods, but Director Michael D. Brown was personally criticized responsible for the slow response of FEMA. It took FEMA several days to establish operations in New Orleans, and even when they were present in New Orleans, they did not seem to have a sound plan of action. It was made obvious that Michael Brown was completely unaware of just how bad things were going on in Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and especially in New Orleans. On Thursday, September 1st, 2005, Brown stated that he had only recently heard that for the past 3 days, thousands of American citizens were stranded in New Orleans Convention Center without food or water. His response was just simply as, "Trucks were on the way and should be there at any moment." Ironically, by September 1st, major news sources such as CNN, NBC, and ABC had been reporting the horrors of New Orleans for over 2 days. How was it that the director of FEMA is barely hearing about it 3 days later? And overall, with the help of FEMA and the Department of Homeland Security, there were still over 60,000 U.S. citizens stranded just in New Orleans alone. It was made quite obvious that FEMA's efforts had failed miserably. Director Michael Brown was eventually relieved of command of the Katrina disaster and soon thereafter resigned.